in terms of the work that I do, I'm responsible. We've got a research and policy forum that's made up of over 150 academics, and I really encourage you, if you are interested in, if you're a researcher of loneliness, you have an interest in loneliness, in joining us, because we really aim to have people from across a wide range of disciplines. I think Kimberly's a member already, but we have, for instance, there's a historian working currently at Queen Mary University who came to present to us. We have meetings 3 times a year. We just had one in last month, and we had a historian coming from Queen Mary who's doing a project that's just been funded by the Wellbeing Trust on the history of solitude. So, and it was really great having her along, because by and large the academics that work on loneliness tend to be epidemiologists and people, but loneliness really is a sort of a type of experience that can be researched by many disciplines. In terms of my role, I work on research and policy, so I thought I'd just give you a flavour of what my weeks looked like. On Monday I was at the Suffolk Playhouse, sorry, I'm American, I still don't say that properly. And I went to see a play called Trestle, that's about a man and a woman who meet, and it was about loneliness. And so I sat on the panel with the writer of the play, talking about the implications of this play and how it related to loneliness. And last night I was at Hammersmith and Fulham, and they were having a health and wellbeing board. So that's sort of really where the policy element of my job comes in, making recommendations about what I guess a local council can do in terms of loneliness. So it kind of spans that sort of academic, very sort of academic focus, working with academics, making sure that research is acknowledged, and then also working with practitioners and policymakers to make sure that work doesn't just languish in academia. Well, I'm going to speak to you today. I'm just going to sort of introduce the campaign and the campaign's work. We believe nobody should be lonely in older age, and we believe that loneliness is not inevitable, and that people of all ages need connections. So we were founded, we've been going now, it's going to be 7 years, and we were founded by some older age charities. So we do focus mainly on old age. Independent Age, Sense, RVS, Age UK Oxfordshire, and Manchester City Council were our founding partners. We just, at the beginning of this year, received big lottery funding, so £2.7 million is going to our work for the next 4 years, which means I've got a contract to the end of 2020, which is amazing. We're really, in our initial stages, we were quite a small team, so we were just 3 people, and we were working. A lot of people said we sort of punched above our weight, so we got a lot of recognition, but we were really sort of strapped in terms of the amount that we could do. But we've now expanded our team to 11 people, so it's quite exciting times for us in terms of that. I've got this slide in here just to sort of touch a little bit on loneliness. It's often the transitions in life that pose a significant risk, so bereavement, illness, disability, retirement. So this is in part why we focus on older people, is because these transitions, they often culminate in old age, and so you have more risk factors as you get older. And the data says that there's about 1.2 million people who are chronically lonely living in the UK, but that's set to increase. It's roughly 10% of the population, but as the population of older people grows, that of course that 10% is going set to rise as well. One of the things that I think the campaign's been really successful at is making the case, the public health case, and the health impact, the case on the health impacts of loneliness. So we know that there's been a lot of research recently that goes into the health effects, looking at the implications for mortality, also heart disease, stroke. So the sort of the lovely fact that we roll out all the time is its impact on mortality is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. I mean, one of the I spoke earlier this year at Public Health England, and one of the ways that I sort of want to think about our messaging around the health effects is that when we think about our health, we know we need to eat 5 fruit and vegetables a day, we know we need to exercise, we know we shouldn't smoke, but we don't often think about, in terms of our health, what are our social connections doing, what is that aspect of our life, and it has an equivalent effect on your health, having those connections as these other things. So how can we move to, I don't know, 5 connections a day, whatever, what's the sort of tagline going to be, but how can we get people to self-assess in terms of their health, the impact that connections have, in addition to these other things that we know very well about. Loneliness, a personal story. This is one of our case studies. This is Lil. She's from North London. She was participating in a project called North London Cares, and there's her and often when I give presentations, I like people to sort of reflect themselves on their own loneliness. And for me, as a PhD student, I don't think anything could have prepared me better for working at the Campaign for Loneliness than doing a PhD. It was a nightmare. In particular, I was at the Open University, and we had a campus in Milton Keynes. So I'm American. I moved to London to have an amazing life in London, and then I got a PhD studentship at the Open University. And I was told I had to live in Milton Keynes, and it was terrible. I hated Milton. I'm sorry if anybody's from Milton Keynes. I lived there for 3 years, and it was just that there were some days when I wasn't going into the office, so I was working at home. I might see my flatmates, but other than that, I was just like, if I don't see another person, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. So I think we all, that for me, those transitions were, starting a PhD, that's quite a solitary pursuit. Also, I was so far away from my family. My parents were in the States. So we all have these points in our lives where these transitions can occur, and we can thus experience loneliness. So just in your own mind, think about what those triggers might have been for you. So how we work. Part of the funding that we received is going to enable us to work in local areas. So we have campaigns managers that have been hired. They started in June, working in Belfast, Cambridgeshire, Carmarthenshire and Pembrokeshire in Wales, and Glasgow in Scotland. And you'll see part of the reason for that is, so Glasgow's an urban area, and Carmarthenshire and Pembrokeshire are very sort of rural areas of Wales. So the idea is to go into these areas and work in the different countries to see how does the different country context change the work that we're doing, how does working in an urban area versus working in a rural area, how is that different? And we're really testing to see what works and what doesn't. We've got these sort of buzzwords, co-producing, so we're working with the people who already are in the area, working on this issue, trying to bring them together, trying to make that work be more synchronized. Just catalyzing activity, and being a person that can be in the area and bring those people working on it together. I've got some achievements up to 2016. I'll just run through these. When we went in for the big lottery, at that point we had over 3,000 active supporters. I think we've, I go on to the next slide to say that improved the sort of numbers of people that have signed up recently. We actually had a film, I don't know if you saw it, that ended up going quite viral. I think it's had 31 million views so far. But it's called The Loneliness Project, and it's about this guy Joe who spends a week alone, and then he ends up meeting his neighbour, who's an older man who's bereaved and is often lonely, and so they sort of talk about their experience. But basically, I think Unilad, I don't know if you guys know this, they picked it up and Daily Mail picked it up, and so because it sort of got put out through those channels, we got a lot. So we got a lot of people signing up after that. We've got our research network that I mentioned. A big part of my role is putting out research, but the research is really, it's not sort of peer-reviewed academic research, it's research that's aimed at practitioners and getting out. So one of the big pieces of work that we've done is looked at measurement tools and made guidance about how you actually measure loneliness. Our learning network, we have over 900, I think it's now up to, I think over 1,200 organizations. So this would be people like Jolie, would be an example of someone in our learning network, people that are providing services that are working with lonely people. And the idea is to bring them together and share best practice, but also to learn from the research that I'm learning about through the Research and Policy Forum. So that's sort of how those two communities, we try to bring them together and work together. In terms of policy, we did some work that showed over 80% of health and wellbeing boards have made a commitment to loneliness, and 73% said that was a result of the work that we've done. So we've done quite a lot in terms of local authority guidance and really getting, so hence me being at the Health and Wellbeing Board on Tuesday, was about how we were talking to them about how do they implement a strategy and how do they really get that in place. And 95% of our supporters are working in services where older people have improved their services. So again, that's one of the achievements that we've made. I'm just going to skip that. So now, according to our work, we've now got 10,000 active supporters, and that's through, I think that video sort of really brought in quite a lot of people. Also this year, this year's been a really big point of transition for us. So we had 8 new people join the team in June, and it's really been about sort of getting in place and really looking at our strategy and looking at the work that we've said to Big Lottery we're going to do and getting that in place. I've been working, my research project for this year is working with the London School of Economics on the cost effectiveness of loneliness. So we had a literature review that was launched in September, and we're now working on creating a tool for people. It's both for providers but also for commissioners, so they can figure out what are the economic benefits of a particular intervention. I've also been working with the Joe Cox Commission on Loneliness. I don't know if you're aware of that, but their manifesto is going to be launched on the 15th. So that's really exciting to sort of, there's actually a meeting at the Cabinet Office next Tuesday that we'll be going to as well. So it's really sort of gone up the national agenda in the past year in large part to the work done by the Joe Cox Commission. So I'm just going to go through some of the activities that we've got going forward. Sharing what works. This is really about the learning network and ensuring that we understand what is best practice, what interventions work. I think this is one of the big gaps in the loneliness research is we don't know what works, we don't know what interventions work, and I'm working really hard with people like the Big Lottery who have a lot of evaluation data, Age UK, Reconnections Project. There's a lot of data coming out of these big projects, and I'm trying to get researchers on board to sort of work and address that gap. A new sort of audience for us going forward is businesses, and this is going to be mainly in the local areas where we want to really engage businesses. And one of the businesses that's made a big impact in this area is the Co-op. They've raised a lot of money with the Red Cross, and they're working really closely, and they're really integrating it into their whole business plan. So things like the funeral, they look at sort of their funeral care, and they're setting up bereavement groups at the funeral. So they're really looking at every stage of their business. How can they insert something around loneliness? Another phase of our work that's going to be really new is engaging with the public. So part of this film that we launched was the first steps of this, is getting the public to be more aware, and we're really keen to work on the stigma. So there's a really big stigma around loneliness, and I think people are afraid to admit to loneliness, afraid to even interrogate themselves to figure out, is that what they're feeling? And so if we can get people to be more aware of that loneliness is normal, that loneliness is something that happens to everyone, I think we'll have great strides in that. That's the other element in terms of public. We also want to help lonely older people, and that again is a new audience. I think in the past phases of the campaign, we were focused very much on service providers and local authorities. So we now want to move, and I've got a big research project that I'm going to be scoping at the moment, looking at how we can talk about resilience, how we can understand people's individual experiences of loneliness, and how we can talk to them about things that they can do. For instance, one of the interventions that's been discussed but we don't have a lot of evidence or information about is cognitive behavioural therapy and sort of psychological approaches. So it's great to see psychologists in the room, and if you've got any if you can point me towards any literatures around resilience or around the experience, the sort of psychological experience of loneliness, I'd be really interested to hear what you have to say about that. And we're also, this is partly a presentation that we give as well to our international audiences. I'm leaving tomorrow for Valencia. I'm going to be speaking at a university, and they've got a 3-day course on loneliness. So we are interested in connecting internationally with other movements. We often get contacted by people, particularly in America, saying, "We love your campaign. What's happening in our country?" And we're trying to sort of figure that out a little bit more. So, and in terms of what you can do, please join the Research and Policy Forum. It would be great to have more, particularly philosophers. That would be brilliant. Philosophers, psychologists. We'd love more of people from those disciplines. And follow the campaign on Twitter and social media. And then I'll just leave you with our contact details. But please do sign up.
Thank you very much.